It's Tuesday, the 26th of August. Welcome to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage and somewhere on the road in the world. That's specific enough, I suppose. Let's get briefed. First up, we'll begin with an update on U.S. efforts to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine as President Trump vents his growing frustration with Vladimir Putin. Trump is accusing Putin of undermining diplomatic efforts with his relentless aerial attacks on Ukrainian cities. Well, Putin did start this whole mess by invading Ukraine, so I'm really not sure he's all about diplomacy and peacemaking. Later in the show, Australian leaders have cut off diplomatic relations with Iran, expelling the Islamic regime's ambassador and designating the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, a terrorist organization. That only took them a few decades to figure out. The move follows allegations that Iran directed two antisemitic attacks against the local Jewish community, including the firebombing of a synagogue. But first, today's afternoon spotlight. President Trump's patience with Vladimir Putin may be wearing thin just 1 week after their high-profile summit in Alaska. On Monday, Trump used an Oval Office signing event to vent his growing frustration with the Russian leader. The president told reporters that while his personal conversations with Putin are cordial, Moscow's actions immediately afterward undermine any goodwill. Trump said, quote, "Every conversation I have with him is a good conversation, and then, unfortunately, a bomb is loaded up into Kyiv or someplace, and then I get very angry about it," end quote. It's the latest in a series of somewhat sharp criticisms that Trump has leveled at Putin since the Alaskan summit. Despite the optics of the two leaders shaking hands on American soil, that was a move that Trump touted as a signal of progress, Russia's nightly strikes on Ukrainian cities have continued, and that persistence appears to be testing Trump's willingness to play mediator. Even so, Trump insisted he remains hopeful. He does seem to have a bottomless well of patience and goodwill. He told reporters, quote, "I think we're going to get the war done," but quickly added a dose of caution, saying, quote, "You never know what's going to happen in a war. Strange things happen in war. The fact that Putin went to Alaska, our country, I think was a big statement that he wants to get it done," end quote. Or it could be a big statement that he's simply playing a game with the international community. One or the other. Trump also shed light on why he thinks progress remains elusive, pointing to what he described as raw personal dislike between Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Asked why Putin has so far refused to sit down with Zelensky, Trump said bluntly, because he doesn't like him. He doesn't like him. They don't like each other, really, end quote. And so, we hereby declare President Trump is the winner of today's PDB Statement of the Obvious Award. But Trump's comments show how the stalled peace effort is not just about battlefield realities, but also about the personal animosities at the very top. And Trump seemed to warn that time is running short. Pressed on whether Russia would face consequences if Putin continues to dodge negotiations with Zelensky, Trump answered, quote, "There would be very big consequences, but we'll see what happens," end quote. Now, that phrasing is classic Trump, both threatening and open-ended, keeping options on the table while signaling his irritation. But at some point, well, you have to either act or get off the pot. Maybe that's not quite how the old saying goes, but you get my point. Meanwhile, as Trump tries to coax Putin toward negotiations, Washington is simultaneously bolstering Ukraine's firepower. According to a Wall Street Journal report, the administration has approved the transfer of more than 3,300 extended-range attack munitions. Now, you know there's an acronym for that, right? ERAMs. And they'll be sending those to Kyiv. The ERAMs represent a significant addition to Ukraine's arsenal. Air-launched and capable of striking targets at ranges between 150 and some 280 miles, the weapons will give Ukraine a more versatile and cost-effective standoff strike capability. Delivery is expected to begin in about 6 weeks. There are, however, some strings attached. Unnamed U.S. officials told the Journal that the ERAMs would require Pentagon approval before being deployed against certain targets, especially those deep inside Russian territory. Well, that sounds like an effective way to prosecute a war. This would probably be similar to the Biden-era ATACMS restrictions, preventing Kyiv from using American weapons to directly hit Russia's heartland. Still, for Ukraine, the new stockpile is a meaningful boost at a time when Russian bombardments remain relentless. Kyiv hopes that better strike options can both blunt Moscow's nightly missile campaigns and strengthen Ukraine's hand at the negotiating table. So, you ask, where exactly are we? 1 week after the Alaskan summit, Trump's experiment in personal diplomacy with Vladimir Putin is showing strain. He's publicly, quote, very angry about continued strikes, skeptical of Putin's refusal to meet Zelensky, and dangling, quote, very big consequences if the Russian leader refuses to budge. At the same time, Ukraine is being armed with thousands of long-range munitions, signaling that Washington isn't betting everything on diplomacy. Trump may believe that he can cut a deal with Putin still, but the battlefield realities suggest that the war may still be a long way from ending. All right, up next, Australia cuts off diplomatic relations with Iran, expelling the Islamic regime's ambassador and designating the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, a terrorist organization. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take just a moment of your time to talk about protecting your hard-earned assets. Now, you've probably taken a look around out there in the big wide world and thought to yourself, there seems to be a little turmoil in the economy. Well, you'd be right. Trade wars and tariffs back and forth, and a U.S. Federal Reserve that seems a bit at odds with the White House, and volatile stock market. Well, you get the picture. And it's at times like these when it's important to think about your assets and how to protect them. And one way to do that is through diversification. And I'm here to suggest that you consider diversifying with gold from the Birch Gold Group. They're the precious metals specialists. Look, for decades, gold has been considered a safe haven in times of economic stagnation or global uncertainty. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or maybe an old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Or, like a lot of folks, you can just buy gold to store safely at home. First, you want to get yourself educated, and Birch Gold can send you a free information kit on gold. Just text PDB to the number 989-898. Again, text PDB to the number 989-898. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. Leaders in Australia abruptly severed ties on Tuesday with the government of Iran, accusing the mullahs of paying local criminals to carry out antisemitic attacks in an attempt, of course, to sow discord and spread fear among the country's Jewish community. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said Tuesday that Canberra is formally cutting off diplomatic relations with the Islamic regime and gave Tehran's ambassador to Australia 7 days to leave the country. It's hard to overstate the significance of the move, as it marks the first time since World War II that Australia has expelled an ambassador from any country. That's according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. Aside from the ambassador, 3 other Iranian diplomats are also being given the boot. That's an official diplomatic term. Additionally, Australia suspended operations at its embassy in Tehran and moved its diplomats out of the country, while urging any Australians or dual Australian-Iranian nationals to leave Iran as soon as possible, warning of the high risk of arbitrary detention or arrest. The diplomatic blow-up followed an investigation into 2 anti-Semitic arson attacks against the local Jewish communities that occurred last fall. One attack involved the firebombing of a synagogue in Melbourne last December, while the other involved a fire set at a kosher food business in Sydney in October. Officials said the attacks were directed by Iran's IRGC, which used a complex web of proxies to hire local criminals to carry out the attacks, masking, or trying to mask anyway, their involvement. As a result, Australia will also formally designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization. At a press conference on Tuesday, Prime Minister Albanese said, quote, "These were extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil. The actions of my government send a clear message, a message to all Australians, that we stand against anti-Semitism and we stand against violence, and a message to nations like Iran who seek to interfere in our country that your aggression will not be tolerated," end quote. As we've seen in the U.S. and across Europe, anti-Semitic incidents have also surged across Australia in the wake of Hamas's 7 October attacks on Israel, and of course the war in Gaza that the massacre ignited. According to Australia's special envoy to combat anti-Semitism, such incidents spiked by a staggering 316% between October 2023 and September of 2024, with more than 2,000 documented cases. The attacks have left Australia's Jewish community on edge, in a country where such incidents are historically rare. Local Jewish leaders praised the government's diplomatic crackdown on Iran, though expressed fear that the mullahs will now attempt to intensify their destabilization efforts. Despite their ongoing diplomatic spat with Canberra over Australia's recognition of Palestinian statehood, Israeli officials praised the action against Iran, stressing that Tehran has posed a direct threat to Israelis and Jewish communities around the world for years. But Iran, as you can imagine, and this will come as quite a surprise, is feigning ignorance about the subversive schemes of the IRGC and lashing out at Australia over the expulsions. A spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry said Tuesday that they, quote, absolutely rejected Australia's accusations and promised a, quote, reciprocal reaction. The official suggested Australia is taking a hard line against Iran to, quote, compensate for the limited criticism the Australian side has directed at Israel. But Australia is just the latest country to formally condemn Iran's efforts to use criminal networks in the West to target dissidents, critics, and the Jewish community. As we recently covered on the PDB, at the beginning of August, the U.S., the U.K., and 12 other countries issued a joint statement denouncing the Iranian regime for engaging in an ongoing campaign to kill and kidnap people in Western countries. While critics of the Iranian regime say that such steps are important, they warn that Iran remains a flagrantly belligerent global actor and say it will take far more than strong words and warnings to contain their ongoing efforts to destabilize Western nations from within. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Tuesday, the 26th of August. Look at that. We are making our way towards the end of August. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And, of course, to listen to the show ad-free, you can do that, and you can do it very simply. Just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, let's be honest, shall we? Most of us, on occasion, or often, are tired, or we're stressed, or dealing with some kind of physical pain, maybe after your workouts. And so what do? Well, typically we just power through, because the last thing we want is, well, another prescription. And let's face it, not much in the medicine cabinet ever actually works as advertised. So that's why I'm happy to tell you about a great company. It's called CB Distillery. Now, their CBD products are helping so many people, including myself, sleep better, feel more relaxed, and ease everyday pain. And the best part? Well, they're all made with premium quality natural ingredients. They've got a full range of solutions for stress, for sleep, for pain after exercise, and even CBD for pets. Yeah, so Fido or Snowball can get in on the action. Their Soothing Relief Balm, as an example, is a huge customer favorite, and so are their sleep products. Their Relief Balm is, after a tough workout, is excellent. Look, it's a game changer. It really does do the job. So if you're tired of being tired and stressed, or you just want to feel better, check out CBD from CB Distillery. And right now, you can save 25% off your entire purchase. That's right, I said 25%. Visit CB Distillery and use promo code PDB. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code PDB. cbdistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.